Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Heidi Ferguson, and next to me in a really pretty purple sweater is Fidista Ramsey, and this is Fierce Honest Hearts. So as always, I will check in briefly, and I think I just want to start by saying, just more appreciation for doing this podcast, having the foresight for it, and finding the right person in front of me, Fidesta, to do this with me, knowing that I'm not only trusting myself, but I'm trusting her to bring herself. And I just wanted to start off with an appreciation. And then I also wanted to talk about, share a little bit about, so me and us and what that is. So we had a conversation, I guess earlier this week, where we had talked about how, we have been planning, different business things and whatnot together, and how that's kind of been put on the back burner, or very organically put on the back burner. And we have these intentions on having business meetings. And what we realized is that what's really important right now, because this is what I need, this is what you need, this is what we need to collective together in our friendship, that's where our focus is right now. And I was feeling a little, I don't know if I want to use the word shame, but I was like, oh, we talked about this, we had this kind of like 9 to 12 month idea outline, if you will, and we haven't really followed up on that at all. And I want to let go of whatever weird feelings I might have been having about it and name it. And so I did. And so for you, our audience, we want to always be forthright and upfront and just let you know that this is where we are. And how could we have known the last few months would have played out? I could never have imagined, for myself, the things that have kind of come forth. And I'm like, all right, there's a reason for this. So to listen to that, I think is really important. And I'm pleased to be making it a priority.
Thanks for naming that. Thanks for remembering that.
Yeah.
That feels important to share with people. Like, yes, we have exciting ideas and things we want to do. And we did choose to prioritize our relationship and our relationships around us. Because if we don't do that, how are we even going to sit here and talk about it?
Right. Yeah. So I'm in for now. I've checked in for now. If you are ready to share a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So I am, I've been pretty reflective the last, as the new year has come in, and I'm finding to this point specifically, because I do business coaching for coaches, so many of them have also been in this place, right? Like, oh, I wanted to launch my website on January 1st, but I haven't because instead I spent time with my family, or I nurtured a relationship with my brother, or right. And something that's really been a remembrance for me is we make these deadlines. They're pretty arbitrary, especially the internal ones, right? I get when you have a deadline from your boss, but the ones we make for ourselves are pretty arbitrary, in my opinion. And then when there's guilt and shame for not having met that arbitrary deadline, right? You get where I'm going with this. And I said this recently to one of my clients. I said, what really matters here is how you treat yourself when you have to push back a deadline a week. And are you celebrating that you actually put your time and energy into your relationships, so that you, as a relationship coach, are walking your talk?
Yeah.
And versus maybe sitting in that, and I'd love to hear more from you of how this feels, that place of shame or guilt that you didn't make a deadline, and then that almost dissolving all you did do that was important. So this feels like really important to bring up. Yeah. And I'm just landing with you, I think, because this week and last week has been very full for me. So Friday is my landing into some quiet space. And it's been full of wonderful humans I've gotten to serve. And it's been very, like, fuller than I've really ever had, I guess. So it's a new rhythm, new questions coming up. Like, do I need an assistant?
Mm,
Right? It's
mhm.
an elegant problem I'm having, which is there's not enough of me to go around. So does that mean a wait list? Right? Do I have to be boundaried that way?
Mhm,
Do I have to be boundaried saying I'm not going to do the admin work? I'm going
mhm,
to give that to someone else so I can do genuinely like what I love anyway, which is
mhm,
the coaching and the teaching.
mhm.
And so, yeah, I'm enjoying the problem
Yeah.
because I know there's some good questions I can start asking myself.
Mm,
Yeah. Because the old me would have been like, I'm going to coach these 20 people and I'm going to do the admin and I'm going to have time for everybody. I would have been a time optimist. And I'm working to not be that person that is kind of in fantasy around what I'm capable of doing because my body's not a machine.
mhm.
And I can treat it that way. And I don't want to anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my check in.
Hmm. Thanks. I'm
Mhm.
hearing, I'm appreciating the awareness that you have and your choice to do it differently. And there's a lot of self-care in there. Like, we've talked about self-care a lot on our podcast, and I do my best when it comes to providing self-care for myself. And I know you do too. And I it's a beautiful problem to have when you have an overabundance of or an abundance of clients and you're trying to do all of the work. Um, yeah, what a great problem to have. And to figure out, well, what is the priority here? What do I really want to do as opposed to what do I feel like oh my God, I'm obligated. I have to do this too, because it is part of the work, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to celebrate, this is going to sound weird, but as a shadow work person, I want to celebrate my envy because a couple months ago, traveling with a friend, she had a wait list, right? And
Mhm,
the upside of it was when someone inevitably graduated or left her coaching practice, instead of her scrambling or being worried, she's like, oh, yeah, who's on the list? And she just bring them in. And I felt really healthy envy that was like, ah, I want to set my nervous system up that way,
yeah.
right? That when someone graduates, and I bless that when that happens, that for me is just a pivot to who's next versus I got to start doing outreach and,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm grateful that that little envy came up because it was pointing towards this is how I take care of myself more.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm.
Thank you for seeing me in that. Self-care,
Yeah.
I'm good at self-care, but I do treat my body a little bit like it's a machine sometimes.
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever done that, or have you always been like the queen of self-care?
No, I have not. I would like to say that I have been, but I have not been the queen of self-care. It's taken, um, I'm going to use the term beating myself up because it's not intentionally beating myself up, but when I overextend and I want to do all of it, because I tell myself that I'm the best one to do this, all the tasks around the big task at hand, it's a lose-lose. No, and especially me, I'm the one that really struggles and suffers. And it was a business coach who spoke with me and just said, look, you are heading towards burnout. And I honestly, Fidesta, I never equated that word with me. Like, I just never thought, oh, I would experience burnout. I never thought that I would. And I was experiencing it. And I was like, I literally cannot do all of this stuff. So like you, I had to prioritize, write everything down, list it, put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it was. And that's where I decided this is where my focus is going to be. All the other is secondary, third, fourth, fifth. And the other thing that I noticed, there were things that really did not need my attention. I told myself, isn't that ridiculous? Like, we tell
I'm curious
ourselves
to
this
hear
is
an
important.
example. Yeah.
And yeah, like I told myself that this is important. I'm like, it's really not that important. And I didn't notice that at first. Like, I really didn't notice that at first, because I was telling myself, and I had this belief that all these things are important. I'm like, actually, no, they're not.
Mhm.
So to have that awareness was huge. And then for, you know, someone that I trusted and knows me well to say, look, this isn't working. I see you're not, you don't seem to be happy doing what I know that you feel passionate about. And that really hit home for me. Like, I literally took a breath and I was like, oh, they're right. And what am I doing to myself?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for all our self-awareness, sometimes it can be a blind spot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes because what I'm hearing for you, and I experienced this in my life, is like I would have to reach the edge of burnout to even know where it is.
Yes. Yes. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And I also, I mean, this is connected to that, but also kind of a sidebar, which is, for me, I mean, we're 13 days into 2023, right? I had to say the year like it's 2023. And I feel like this year, for whatever reason, the on-ramp, I'm like in first gear going up the on-ramp. That's how it feels. And I'm okay with that. Mostly I'm okay with it. I'm struggling with a little bit of anxiety, telling myself, okay, I don't want to should myself, but there's more I could be doing or whatever. And I'm like, for whatever reason, this is a sign. You need to listen, not only to the sign, but listen to yourself, because it's internal. And listen to it, and then pay attention to what's happening around you, Heidi, because that's where the answer is. Like, that's where you're going to glean all this information. And it's taken me a lifetime to get there, right? Like, to get to that point. I'm like, okay, I hear you.
It's
Yeah,
so important. And
it is.
can we also talk about like the enthusiastic 9-year-old in us that's like, yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
because I had to set limits with her.
Mhm.
She used to set up my schedule. And then the adult me would have to figure out how in the world
Am I going to
I
do all
was going to do all that and have enough rest, play, eat, right? And I don't know that we talk about that. Like, I had to set limits with like that 9-year-old who, like, I get emails all the time. They're like, hey, would you like to come to Nashville for a week and do a songwriting circle? Yeah, yeah. Right. Would you like to teach this other cohort? Yeah. Would you like to, and I think when I realized that I was letting the kid drive the car and that this precious vessel can only do so much, right? There was a real coming to Jesus moment, or whatever they call it,
Yeah.
because I had to bust the myth that I was like infinitely supplied,
Mhm.
all the time in this physical body. And no was hard for a while,
Mhm.
right? It was almost like counter instinctual for me.
Mm.
Because if I'm lit up by it, it's a yes. And it's like, wait a minute,
Mhm.
you can be lit up by it and do it in a year.
Mhm.
right? Or put it on the 3-year plan. But
Yeah.
if it was, I'm looking back now, it was almost like someone with no um, pacing of time and passion,
Yeah.
right? And I had to really start pacing my passion. Like, you've got decades. This all doesn't have to be done in February.
Yeah. Yeah.
Self-control in there for me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And do you mind if I comment a little bit about that? Yeah.
You got to
So
witness some of it as a friend, so.
I've witnessed a lot of it, and I'm noticing and I'm seeing the changes in you. Like today, you realized the reality of the errand that you were running would need more than an hour. And so you asked me, you said, can I have 15 more minutes? Of course.
Mhm.
Um,
And that
you
used to
know,
be edgy for me because I,
right. I
right,
know.
wouldn't want to
Yes.
bother you or bother someone else.
Yes. Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. All of that. And I remember, and this was a while ago, and you asked, said, I want to have something to eat between this client and our phone call. And I'm like, well, of course. Like, of course you want and you need something. We need to stay nourished. So you talked about like eating, remembering to eat and taking that time to eat. Yes. And going to the bathroom. Like it's one of the
I
things that
know
our
it's
body
real.
needs to do. Like there's no apology. It's happening. I need a
Yeah.
bio break.
But
XYZ.
how interesting that sometimes in our conditioning of being polite or sacrificing ourselves, that could feel hard to ask
Yeah.
for. And I
Yeah.
have a question for you, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. It would be cool for me to know. And I'm still obviously on the path, right? So I don't feel like I've arrived anywhere. But how am I wouldn't say how am I showing up differently? How is this impacting our relationship?
Yeah.
That's more important to me. Yeah.
Great question. And I was actually gonna to talk about that. I was actually gonna talk about that. So when you don't ask for time or space or whatever we want to call that, I feel the nervous energy. I
Mm,
feel, I'm going to name it anxiety, for lack of a better word,
sure.
because if you haven't taken care of yourself and you're attempting to go from an hour appointment to a phone call with me at 1, I'm like, how does someone how does someone do that? And personally, I'm the type of person who wants a lot of space if it's
Transition
available.
time. Hmm.
Yeah, I want transition time, and I need a break just to step away, right?
Hmm.
And it might seem extreme, but there have been times when I've asked people, can we put this off an hour? If they can't, they can't. And then I'll ask, well, what's the greatest amount of time that you can give between
Hmm.
now and, you know, um, because I know it's better for me. I feel more resourced. I feel like I can bring more of myself to the conversation, to the podcast, whatever. And so when I notice you doing that, I'm like, oh, I don't need to worry about her. She's got her own back. She's taken care of. Because there have been a few times when I've stepped in and
Yes, you
I
have.
said, and I hope that's okay.
Yeah, to check my, as I'm still working on it, to check and have my back.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Like, are you sure? Is that enough time? Right. Like,
yeah,
don't, nobody needs a hero here.
right. I'm not looking for a hero. Like I'm
Yeah.
not.
And
And
this is,
so,
the conditioning, right? Like, my early work history was working on sets where you had to override your body, working in politics
mm,
where you had to override your body. Those were like 18-hour days. And then working at nonprofits where they made you override your body.
mm,
So this is for me a coming home. It's a healing journey. Say, you know what? I need a freaking nap. Like, I'm
yeah,
not putting anybody there, and I need that time for me. And you've been a great ally
mm,
because of, I think, often the look on your face when I would share my schedule, let's say even 6 months ago,
Yeah.
and you do that, right? And I'd be like, maybe that's not good, right? Like Heidi's looking at me like, how are you doing that?
Mhm.
And it helped me question,
Mm.
let's say, the strategies.
Yeah.
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 And I actually am much more, I need more space than I often think I do.
Yeah. I can assure you that's probably really true about yourself.
Yeah. I
And I would
imagine
say,
a lot of people.
I was going to say, I think that's probably true for most of humanity. We
Yeah.
really, really stretch ourselves thin.
Mhm.
And my question is, why are we doing that to ourselves? Not as a judgment, but just really out of curiosity. If a person chooses to really look closely at themselves, at their inner selves, and
Mhm.
ask themselves, okay, my schedule was jam-packed today. I accomplished so much. Who really gives a shit?
Did I
Like,
enjoy
really, who?
it?
What's that?
Right. I now ask myself, and did I get to enjoy it?
Yeah, yes. That's the other piece. Are you enjoying the time that you are spending on all of these tasks that you're accomplishing? And are you even noticing the benefits of the accomplishment?
Yeah.
There's a lot packed in there. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm also imagining this resonating with people as the new year starts and there's like goals, resolutions. Let's like light a fire under our asses and get all these things done, right? And I don't know what the ratio was, but it was somewhere in that like 70-80% of New Year's resolutions kind of die a slow death within 6 weeks
Mhm.
because we're not being kind to ourselves,
Right.
because we're not being realistic. And we talked about this last time. So,
Yeah.
tethered to that is this idea of, I don't know, slow and steady. Slow and steady is just fine.
Mhm.
Fast and burnout.
No, thank you.
No, and not sustainable. So, like, let's just get real.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm. What else? I'm just curious what else you'd like to be seen in. It doesn't have to be in that subject matter, but
Yeah. Um, hmm.
mhm,
So um, a Facebook friend, recently posted that they are struggling in their depression, just feeling sad, etc. And a lot of people comment, me too, me too, me too, that kind of thing. And and especially in this new year, like, that we have this idea of new year, new me, blah, blah, blah.
right.
I'm going to call BS on that, because let's really take the time to take care of ourselves. So if we are feeling sad and depressed, and some of that is, carrying over from the new year, I think that's very natural and very normal. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because mental health is something that it never really goes away. It ebbs and flows and it changes and all that. But at the crux of it, a lot of people are really struggling. And I'm saying this in order to just kind of normalize it and flatten it out by saying you're not alone. And I think the way that mental health has been handled,
Yeah.
because people don't talk about it because it's something to feel shame or guilt around.
They isolate.
Yes, and this person mentioned this, and they're isolating, and I'm like, we need to, if one has the energy or the capacity to just bring an ounce of that forward, I
Mhm.
really want to invite you and welcome you to do that, because the truth is the truth of the matter is that none of us are in this alone. There is a collective, and um it's also energetically viral. Like, it's happening with that,
Mhm.
throughout the universe. And I talk a lot about tentacles, and the tentacles on this are very far and very wide. And you know, in the context of someone choosing to, you know, take their own life, and their life, I've read this somewhere, and I can't remember if I've shared this on the podcast, but I've read somewhere that the many people who are in the state of that darkness,
Yeah.
typically those people don't necessarily want to die. They just want the pain to end.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you know, I know that I've been in a space where I'm like, why am I here? What am I doing? I'm not feeling my purpose right now. And I'm feeling really, you know, in my shadow and all my darkness, and I can't make sense of anything. And it just, it goes on and on. And I'm too lazy. Sorry, I don't mean to make it funny, but I'm too lazy to do that. Like I'm too late. I'm like, I've got to figure this out. Like, what would I do? How would I do, you know, how would I choose to do this if I took my own life? And then the cleanup.
Just
Like I
all
think
of
about-
it.
like it's the whole gamut, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so I really don't want that, but I do know that I know that I want to wake up tomorrow, even though I don't feel like it. So how can I get this out? How can I not keep it in where it is killing me internally, right? So for those of you, and we talked about, you know, knowing your audience last time. So for those who do have someone to reach out to share with, know that person well. Let me say that first, before you share. And because really all you're probably looking for is someone to hold space for that.
Yeah.
Um,
And if you don't have someone, right, like it's okay to reach out to a stranger. Like I would say, like
Yeah.
the suicide prevention hotline, like this is the 1 ounce you're talking about.
yeah,
Right? The 1 ounce could be a text to a friend you really know cares about you. I'm struggling. Do you have time to talk? Right.
Yeah.
And I know that's a flex, but that's what a 1 ounce looks like.
mhm,
Is it's not, let me put on my favorite earrings and my cute outfit and try to go clubbing, or right, people think like they're supposed to pull themselves up by the bootstraps.
Right.
No, just like 1 ounce of outreach
mhm,
so that someone else can hold you.
yeah,
When I'm with you in my 20s before my training and shadow work and stuff, I was never suicidal, but I just kind of wanted to dissolve, right? Like I was like, if I could just evaporate, like humaning is so hard. And I would just love to just evaporate and not have to do this.
mm,
And the question I started to ask myself is, why is humaning so hard for me?
mm,
Right? I was around people that weren't my people. I was working a job I didn't love. At the time, I was in a marriage that wasn't fulfilling. Right. And I started making those changes slowly, gradually. But I started to look at what's making it so hard to be human here. And then there was my trauma work, because that was I would say a major percentage
mhm,
was on processed trauma. That just made it hard to, like, I don't know, be happy every day, or even just be functional every
mhm,
day. And the 1 ounce was, I'm going to look at psychology today and see if any of these therapists I resonate with. And I
mhm,
did, or
mm,
I'm going to start really considering that maybe the place I work at isn't my place. Right. And it's slow. I'm feeling the molasses of it, like
mhm,
the heaviness and the molasses when we're not well. And the good news is, like, it's just baby steps
yeah,
in a different direction.
mhm.
Yeah.
Mm.
What's the 1 ounce look like to you? Because that feels important, like giving people examples of, like, what's that, just like, the get out of bed.
Yeah. So I have a couple
Mm.
that I use. So let me just start by saying one of my favorite places is my bed.
Same.
I love my bed so much. And what's helpful for me is I even though I may not get out of bed until a certain time, I set my alarm, because then I just mentally, I'm like, oh, okay, I need to pay, like, there's this noise alarm telling me that, okay, it's morning and it's time to, and most of the time I wake up before my alarm, but I really don't want to stay in bed too much longer after my alarm. And even though I'm awake and I might be reading or whatever, I will actually hit snooze. So it gives me 10 more minutes to read or contemplate. I mean, I love to daydream. I do a lot of daydreaming in my bed. And if I'm not feeling, if I'm in my depression or my anxiety and I'm like, oh my God, I feel so good here, I don't want to get out. I gently force myself, but I do force myself. I'm like, I'm not gonna lay here for another hour, because I could, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna make myself get up. And then the first thing I do is I start heating my milk, and I start heating, putting my coffee, my espresso on, and just these really are for me tiny baby steps, because if I do something productive, so for me, making coffee for me is productive, right? Or peeling a piece of fruit. I'm like, okay, I'm going to eat that, and I'm going to have maybe a little bit of peanut butter with it, whatever that is. Cutting fruit, like, these are all productive, things that I'm doing
And
for myself.
healthy, right? Like
Healthy,
also,
productive, yes. If there is a basket of laundry that I've ignored that needs to be folded or whatever, I'm like, okay, I don't necessarily want to fold all of it, but I'll fold a couple pieces and put them away, right? Like, those little things, I'm like, okay, so before I hit the screen, because this just takes on a life of its own, I'm like, okay, I don't want to do that. But for me to do things around my apartment is really helpful. Making my bed, fluffing my pillows, just so that it looks nice and presentable. I'm like, okay, I don't make my bed every morning, but there are mornings when I'm like, oh, I really like the way that it looks, and it just changes my perspective. Yeah. What about you? Do you have things when
I
you're
love
feeling?
those. Yeah, I mean, it's gonna laugh, but like I like to vacuum. Like
Really?
I like to like feather the nest, right? So
Uh-huh.
similar to like you fluffing the pillows and stuff, it's like I do make my bed every morning. I should say our bed. It's one of the first things I do because it just feels like, okay, that is like complete.
Uh-huh.
And if I'm really just low, for me, the simple act of feathering the nest, it's like washing a few of those dishes, vacuuming, sweeping the floor. Um, I start to, because my senses I am processing while I'm active, right? I'm like things are happening behind the scenes while I'm physically moving my body,
Mhm.
that I do feel better. Um, I'm a big co-regulator, so I reach out to people,
Uh-huh.
and I'm unafraid to say like I'm feeling weird today.
Uh-huh.
Right? Like, and just not isolating in
Uh-huh.
it to the best that I can. Um, Candles, like lighting a candle, essentially holding a vigil for my depression or my anxiety, just being like, I see you. I'm going to light a candle here. Um, I think, we have the baths and all those kind of self care, but sometimes just putting on real clothes and like some lipstick,
Yeah.
I'm not saying it makes everything better, but it's like you're talking about these incremental moments. And maybe as we're talking about this, I wonder if people think I've got to go from feeling depressed and anxious to happy. And it's like, no. Can you get from there to like, I feel a little bit of hope? Not much, but just a little bit.
Yeah.
My apartment feels a little cleaner. I moved my body 5 minutes, right? I reached out to a friend. I just want to bust the myth that like we're going to go from here to here, that it
No.
might just be like bink, bink, bink for days,
Yes,
for
yes,
days.
yes. And
And
we might
that's okay.
backslide.
Yeah.
There's always the possibility of backslide.
Yeah. And that's
Um,
okay too.
and that's okay too. And it's normal.
And it's normal.
It's normal.
Mhm.
And because I noticed this week for myself, I was experiencing a little bit on Sunday and then into Monday, and I'm like, oh, these are those Monday blues and anxiety. And I actually wrote a newsletter about it because I'm like, I know I'm not the only one. And what I didn't talk about in my newsletter was that this was actually, it feels like a backslide to me
Mm.
because I had, spent a couple months in some grief and whatnot, and depression and anxiety, and then I was feeling a little bit better. I felt like felt more balanced and not great, but kind of in the middle. And then I was a little caught off guard
Yeah.
by this backslide, and I'm like, and here, and I remember hearing myself say, here it is again, because that's shown up before. So I know it's normal.
Yeah.
And it's not like you said, it's not like I'm going to go from 0 to 10. These increments can be like 0.5 sometimes.
Mhm.
That's what it might feel like.
Mhm.
Um, so to bring some normalcy to that, I think is how we can support ourselves, support our friends. And then, like you said, you reach out, to friends and just to let them know where you are. And I do the same thing. I feel like,
Mhm.
um, and again, know who can, and really be clear about who I know can hold that for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Yeah. And sometimes, you know what? I curl up in bed and watch a movie and just give myself grace that it's how I feel tonight and tomorrow's a new day, and almost don't make it a thing.
right,
You know what I
right.
mean? Almost
Yeah,
just be like, cool, no problem. Let's
yeah,
just watch a movie and relax. Sometimes it passes, sometimes it doesn't, but
yes,
maybe we don't need to be forced into being great all the time. I just don't buy that concept.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think I think if we do that or tell ourselves that I need to be happy, that's another thing I'm going to call BS on. I don't think that's real. I don't think
Yeah.
if we're doing that to ourselves, then what's really happening?
Mhm.
What is this my truth?
It's also an odd expectation, right? Because mine is like, can I have the steadiness to be with whatever comes?
Yeah.
Right. And then also from the high performance side, they talk about how our current mood experience is related to the last 72 hours. So then it's like, it's a cofactor of 72 hours. What did I didn't exercise yesterday and I stayed up till 1 a.m. the night before and I had a drink the night before that. And you look at 72 hours and you go, oh, it's not personal.
Mhm.
And the upside is I could now just go have an orange and drink more water and get more sleep. Like you can affect the equation.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what we've been talking about a bit is be the author by affecting the equation somehow. Whatever you have access to. It might be one yoga stretch,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But don't just let it impose itself on you and not have agency if you can. And if you don't know how to do that, like find your allies. But
Yeah.
yeah. Mm.
Mm,
This feels really timely with the months that we are in.
yeah.
And I know the struggle that people can feel, in at least the Northern Hemisphere,
Mhm.
during this darker, colder time.
Yeah. Same. Yeah.
Thank you, friend.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So are we going to do the and question?
Oh, okay. That's how I have to hold
And
it.
yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Wanted to make sure the screen stitch works. Okay. We are 199 questions, totally random.
Okay.
We got there's a second pack for long term, and the questions are around healing.
Oh, is
I
that
don't
the
think,
deck? Is that the deck you're pulling from?
no, this one is called the And Couples Edition Long Term, because they also have like the dating edition,
Okay.
but I haven't unwrapped it yet. Maybe the
Oh, okay.
next time it's up. I don't know how deep. I mean, it's long term and healing
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
It feels edgy to me, but I'm excited.
That's what we committed to. That's what we
I
committed to,
know.
remember? Yeah.
I
Okay.
know. Okay, ready?
Yeah.
Going by the middle.
Okay. There.
This one?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, this is such a sweet question. Okay. If for some reason I lost my memory, sorry, I'm just going to read it to you.
Okay.
If for some reason I lost my memory, what's the first thing you tell me about us?
Oh my goodness. The first thing I would tell you about us is how much we trust and love and respect each other.
Oh,
And I would elaborate, but that's where I think I would start. Like if you can't even imagine that. Like, yeah. Oh, so if I lost my memory, what is the first thing that you would tell me about us?
I think I would share the love story of how we've built this friendship, and the giggles and the tears and the conflict repair cycles and the learning. And I think it lands under your like trust, what you're
Yeah.
sharing, like how much we trust each other. But I think I tell you the love story. Yeah. Such a sweet question.
That is a sweet question. Oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Oh,
that just lit up my whole heart.
me too. Yeah.
Hmm.
To just consider that prospect. It's big.
It's tender.
It's really tender and it's important. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, friend, for this time, for your willingness, for your heart, for listening, and continuing to stay with me in it, and all of it.
Thank you for what I experience as your wisdom and your blessings and gift of how you have the things you've figured out about this life and how that can be a real page in someone else's survival guide right now. Like I see it that way. And yeah, thank you for gifting me the grace of a little more time so that I could be here. I really appreciate the care I felt in your texts. That gave me like, oh, okay, I'm, I'm being held and loved by you as I flex this muscle. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for your just there's no words sometimes for me of like how loved I feel by you. Thank you. It really means a lot to me.
You're welcome. And thank you for receiving it. Like that really means a lot. Yeah, that means a lot. Because I've been told in the past that my love is too much. And I'm like, I don't think that's true. I think that whoever can and will receive it is the right person or right people in my life to do that. I don't
Wow.
think there ever is too much love. I don't.
Yeah.
I think we need more of it in the world.
I'm bummed that you received that message while I, psychologically understand the person in some ways
Sure,
who might
sure, me
say
too.
that. And I feel like your love, I just saw the little Goldilocks. It's like the just right, the
Yeah.
nourishing. It's your love
Mm,
is very nourishing to
thank you.
me. So thank you.
Thank
Feels
you.
like we're both getting to heal, I'm healing the trusting and receiving, and you're
Yeah,
getting to be received. So that feels
yeah,
so good to me.
yeah.
Mm,
Thank you, friend.
thank you, friend.
All right, audience, until next time, we appreciate you. We ask that you, if you feel called to, share and subscribe and all the things. If you have a comment, please let us know. If you want to email us, you can reach us through YouTube. It's all there. So anyway, have a great day, everyone. And until next time, be well.
So much love.
Bye.